Okay, WWE Elimination Chamber 2020, or 2020, I guess. Anyway, starting off with, thankfully, some good news. WrestleMania will still be on the WWE Network this year. They basically said they did the whole, you subscribe, if you're a new subscriber, you get 30 days free, including WrestleMania. So that does mean it's going to be on the network. There were these pervading rumors, and I'm guessing they're probably not going to go away for a while, that they're looking to start outsourcing the big four pay-per-views, Rumble, Mania, SummerSlam, and Survivor Series, out to actual pay-per-view distributors now. Possibly ESPN, possibly, or ESPN Plus to be more precise, possibly DAZN, which does a lot of other combat sports, possibly Amazon, I think, was in the mix at one point. And, you know, again, I understand that because network subscriptions have really stagnated in the last year and a half, basically, that, you know, hey, you need to start pumping up the revenue again, and, you know, just the mega billion-dollar deals with Saudi Arabia and Fox probably aren't going to carry much more. But again, it's like, well, you know, but the whole point of getting the network is you got all the pay-per-views, including WrestleMania, for basically what WrestleMania was going to cost alone, give or take. I believe last time WrestleMania was on proper pay-per-view, it was $75 to $80, and so the $9.99 a month, or to be precise, $9.99 for 11 months, because you get the first month free, sounds way more exactly like. I mean, that's roughly the, you know, not too much more than just Mania alone. So, yeah, again, I know I'm stealing Jim Sterling's quote on this. I know corporations don't want some of the money, they want all the money, but if you have both those streams open, you can get all the money. Anyway, let's move on to the show proper. Overall, I did think this was a pretty decent show. I mean, painfully predictable, unfortunately, so that was a bit of a drag, and there was one more thing I have to mention, but I'll get to that when I get to it. We did have a kickoff show to start things off. It was the Viking Raiders versus Curt, Hawkins, and Zack Ryder. This was basically just a squash match. Eric was in it for most. Eric of the Viking Raiders was in it for most of it. Hawkins did get a couple of moves in. Ryder did get a couple of moves in. He had a neck breaker through the ropes. Hawkins landed a couple of scurry kicks. He had a belly back suplex. Hawkins had a suicide dive. But eventually, Ivar got the hot tag. He mowed through both Hawkins and Ryder, and then looked like they were Hawkins, the Majors, were going to hit a big move, but then Ivar ducked out of the way, and Ryder caught Hawkins with the Rough Rider, and that enabled the Viking Raiders to hit the Viking Experience for the 3 count of the victory. This match didn't really need to exist. The only thing I could think of is something that happened later, and to explain why a certain tag team would be at the show. But other than that, it really, like I said, it was pretty pointless. It didn't add anything at all. And so let's move on to the show proper. We opened up with Daniel Bryan versus Drew Gulak. Bryan did a really good job of did a really good job of making Gulag look like a convincing threat. Gulag definitely worked everything over really hard. He did a lot of joint manipulation. There was actually one part where they got each other in a leg. Both men were grapevining each other's legs, and they were landing kicks at the same time. Gulag got cut under his eye. Bryan got a lot of welts on his back. It was really physical and really intense. A lot of the joint manipulation from Gulag. Eventually, Gulag did get a big back suplex, and Bryan started selling a neck injury, like he was losing feeling in his hands again, and there was some concern over that. And again, like, Bryan would start to rally, but then Gulag would just hit this another big move. He hit a massive release German suplex, and just, again, Bryan landed right on top of his neck, and it just, yeah, like, it's one of those, I really hope he does not hurt his neck again, because, again, the concussions, the neck problems, he probably shouldn't be taking bumps like that. But Bryan came back, he had a flying elbow he tried to go for his flying knee, but Gulag blocked it. Gulag hit a reverse superplex and then tried to pull that into the Dragon Sleeper, but Bryan fought out of that and locked on the yes lock, and Gulag eventually passed out. And so Daniel Bryan wins. Afterwards, he celebrated with the fans, but then he turned and he pointed at Gulag, and then he did the yes pose as kind of an acknowledgement to, hey, you proved yourself in this. And again, hopefully that helps make Drew Gulak look like a convincing threat the way Buddy Murphy has been slowly made into a convincing threat over on Raw. Or, I'm sorry, Murphy. Since aligning with Seth Rollins. I'd like to see them utilize that more since there's more characters. I mean, those are guys who migrated over from the Cruiserweight division, and I'd like to see more success with that. And, especially when you look at, Cedric Alexander got pushed, and then he didn't. Ricochet got pushed, and now he won't be probably ever again, unless someone can finally convince Vince otherwise. And then when you look at something else that's going to happen later on, again, it seems to hopefully have stabilized things. Okay, our next match is the United States Championship match, Andrade versus Humberto Carrillo. Right off the bat, Andrade went for a big boot, but Carrillo dodged it, and Andrade managed to fight through that and land a back spinning elbow right on the side of Carrillo's face. Carrillo came back, drop kick, he clotheslined Andrade out of the ring. Carrillo then hit a springboard into a flying headbutt. Andrade fought back again, he had a couple big moves. They got on the outside of the ring. Andrade tried to lift up the mat so he could expose the concrete again, but Carrillo prevented him from doing that, only to get shoved into the ring post. Carrillo came back, he was springboard into a Shining Wizard. Andrade got Carrillo in, tossed him to the turnbuckle again. He hit a top rope Frankensteiner. Carrillo hit a top rope Frankensteiner. Andrade, see, what did I write here? Andrade swings Carrillo into, tricks, Snookers, that's what he did. He tricked Carrillo into getting tossed in, tried to go for the double knees. He eventually hit the double knees, got a 2 count on it. Outside the ring, Zelina Vega exposed the concrete again. They tried to do the hammerlock DDT. Carrillo fought out of it. He had a big plancha to the outside of the ring. Everything seemed good. They got back in, and Andrade countered a victory roll attempt into a pin of his own and grabbed the tights, got the leverage for the 3 count and the victory. Really, really good match here again. Great moments, the good utilization of both men's abilities. Probably the one maybe big drawback is I believe this is kind of similar to what happened at the Rumble, where it's another leverage pin. Not to mention, I think a lot of people were expecting Angel Garza to insert himself in, since he had kind of been inserted in the storyline as Andrade had gotten suspended for 30 days. And don't know, and again, Carrillo loses. Naturally you should be building to him winning the championship at WrestleMania, but if he keeps losing too much, you start to neuter him as a possible threat. But still, overall, like, a really entertaining match, so I'm not going to poo-poo it too much here. Okay, our next match is our first Elimination Chamber match, and it's for the SmackDown Tag Team Championships. The champions, Miz and John Morrison, take on the New Day, the Usos, Heavy Machinery, Robert Roode and Dolph Ziggler, and Lucha House Party. New Day and the Usos were the first 2 teams out. The first 2 teams to start the match, basically. After that, Lucha House Party came out next after Kofi had... Kofi tried to do a top rope move, but kind of slipped in the process and almost took Jey Uso down, and almost looked like it was narrowly avoiding a disaster there. Lucha House Party, as I say, came out next. Lince Dorado hit a big drop kick on Kofi. He hit a handspring stunner on Jimmy Uso. Big E tossed both members of Lucha House Party to the chamber floor. Both both Lince Dorado and Grand Metalik went after Kofi on top of one of the pods at that point. Miz and Morrison were out next. Miz and Morrison hit a double gutbuster DDT combination on Jimmy Uso. Metalik did a head scissors off the pod on John Morrison. At that point, Heavy Machinery came out. And this kind of built to the really big spot of the match, which is Lince Dorado, who was on top of the pod, climbed the wall and then climbed the wall of the chamber and did a shooting star press off of the ceiling onto the group below. It wasn't that bad, except it kind of reminded me of way back in the 2015 Elimination Chamber, where Kalisto did a similar thing, except this time they did it right. They kept it off camera so you didn't see Lince Dorado just climbing up, and where it took like 5 or 6 minutes to set this thing up. So we had guys standing there watching him climb all the way up. At least in this case, it was like, okay, focus on some other action, and then suddenly cut to him sitting there swinging off for the move. But unfortunately, it just enabled Lucha House Party to get eliminated by the trash compactor by Heavy Machinery. It's at that point that Rude and Ziggler came out, and they worked with Miz and Morrison to take out Heavy Machinery. Heavy Machinery began to fight back. Tucker was up on one of the pods. He hit basically a cannonball off of there onto pretty much all of the other opponents except for Rude and Ziggler. Ziggler was sitting next to the pod chamber, and Otis charged after him. Ziggler just dodged at the last second. Otis went through the pod chamber and through the outside part of it and crashed to the outside of the ring at that point. He was unconscious. And Tucker tried to fight bravely in Otis's stead, but it just didn't work. Rude and Ziggler hit a DDT. Let me see. Ziggler hit a super kick DDT into the glorious DDT to eliminate Tucker. And yeah, like I said, it was a pretty cool spot. It was really dangerous because, like I obviously know that stuff's kind of rigged to give way when it needs to, but you had a big unbroken shard of. I guess what the pod chamber lining is made of, flying towards the Spanish announce team, and that's a little dangerous. So try to be a bit more careful. Like maybe you should have set that up on the other side of the ring where someone couldn't get hurt so easily. But after that, the New Day and the Usos then worked together immediately to eliminate Ziggler and Rude. They both hit finishers on them. And then the New Days and Usos started work against Miz and Morrison until the Usos suddenly super kicked the New Day. Kofi tried to go for he went for a top rope splash, but he missed, and Miz and Morrison covered him for the 3 count and the victory. The New Day were eliminated there. I guess they won on victory, a little elimination. Sorry. Miz gets Jimmy into the figure 4 after hitting the skull-crushing finale, but Jay breaks it up. He super kicks Morrison, but then Morrison comes back and hits a move of his own, and then they get Jimmy to kind of chase them into a position where they can both get a leverage pin. Miz has his feet on the ropes. Morrison basically does kind of like a sunset flip in the part of it as well, and they pin Jimmy to retain the tag team championships. Overall, a good match. I think probably the one drawback is it took a while for that first elimination. I think Lucha House Party was maybe in it for a little too long. Like maybe some type of mistime happened. Like maybe the shooting star press wasn't at the right point, because it seems like he hits the shooting star press. They're all, quote, out except, for Heavy Machinery, they just narrowly avoided it. And that's like nothing else happens for 2 or 3 minutes, and then finally they hit the compactor on, I think it was both members of the Lucha House Party. I may be wrong. It's like, yeah, that took a little too long. Like, just cover one of them. You don't need to do both. It's just added some unnecessary runtime. But still, this was an overall pretty decent match. And again, the show for this point was really shaping up pretty decent. Obviously they then went to a backstage bit where they interviewed Natalya, who talked about Randy Orton attacking Beth Phoenix. I don't know, and that Edge is coming back to Raw obviously tomorrow night, and obviously it's probably going to be leading to that match at WrestleMania. And also Austin's going to be on Raw for March 16th, i.e. 316. Okay, our next match is the match between AJ Styles and Alistair Black. It's no DQ, which means anything goes. That's their words, not mine. Anyway, on the bright spot, during Andrade's entrance, they finally got rid of that stupid drawbridge sound when they raise him. That didn't go off for some reason. Hopefully that's a permanent thing. That's not something they just forgot. Anyway, Styles had Gallows and Anderson with him at ringside, citing the fact that they couldn't get tickets because the arena was sold out. I don't think the arena was sold out. But anyway, right off the bat, Gallows and Anderson distracted Black long enough to get AJ to attack his knee. AJ hit him with a chair. He got a kendo stick out. Alistair Black fought back. He set up a table on the outside of the ring. Like I said, Styles came back. He attacked him with a chair to the knee, then a kendo stick to the knee. He set the chair up in the corner. It took a while for them to eventually get into it, so much so that the chair fell out of the corner a couple of times. And eventually they set it back up. Black managed to fight back off a little bit. Styles tried to jump off the top rope, do a phenomenal forearm on the outside of the ring. Black countered that with a jumping knee strike. Styles hit an Ushigoroshi, tweaking his own knee in the process. Black came back. He kicked Styles into the chair that had been mounted in the corner. They fought to the outside of the ring. They tried to set something up on the German announce table. Black managed to kick Styles' leg, and Styles face planted on the announce table, and then Black hit a Meteora through the table he had set on the outside of the ring. At this point, the OC finally get involved. They all gang up on Black, and just when it looks like they're about to deliver the final blow, you hear the Undertaker's music. The lights go out. It comes up. The Undertaker's in the ring. He tosses Gallows and Anderson outside. He then chokeslams Styles. Black gets up and hits the Black Mass for the 3 count and the victory. After all, I'll point out too before I get my overall thoughts here. Afterwards, Black looked a little upset as to what happened. Like he wasn't entirely happy that the Undertaker had to come to his aid. Obviously, they're building towards Taker Styles at Mania, but it does intrigue me as to what Alistair Black might have to do with it, though. So who knows? Maybe something will come of that. Overall, the match was pretty good. I think it's kind of hindered by coming after the long Elimination Chamber match, and I think the other problem too is, again, I know both men are used to working on no DQ match, but this thing was a little too slow to build. You should have had, instead of Styles going under the ring and looking for a kendo stick, it should have been, Gallows or Anderson finding the kendo stick and sliding it to that. It needed to be a little faster paced than this. It was a little too slow. I wouldn't say it was plotting, but it was kind of close to it at times, and it just seemed to take a lot of time for some of this stuff to develop, and it probably needed to be a much, much tighter match. Okay, our next match is the Raw Tag Team Championship match, the Street Profits versus Rollins and Murphy. AOP accompanied both Rollins and Murphy to the ring. They immediately started looking around for Kevin Owens. They looked under the ring. They looked under the announce table. They asked the announcers in general. As this was happening, the match started. Dawkins hit Rollins a couple of times. Raw immediately turned around and tagged in Murphy. Murphy was really in the most of the match. Occasionally Rollins would blind tag, get in, get a couple cheap shots, then tag Murphy back in. Street Profits hit a double arm drag and double drop kick on Murphy. Rollins blind tagged at one point and chop blocked Dawkins to allow the former champions to get involved. Rollins distracted the ref long enough for AOP to begin to interfere in the match. At this point, the Viking Raiders music hits, and they come down to go after AOP, so I think that's why we had the kickoff show match right there, to explain why the Viking Raiders were there in their ring gear. Rollins at one point, Ford got the tag, he hit the frog splash, Rollins countered that into a small package, and as this was happening, Kevin Owens comes out of the stands eating a box of popcorn. He starts coming through the stands, he's carrying a box of popcorn. He hops the barricade, sits on the Spanish announce table. Rollins gets out, starts yelling at Owens. At this point, Angelo Dawkins spears him into the ring barricade. Murphy tries to go for a plancha, but the Street Profits catch him and do a barricade bomb. They then get Murphy in the ring and hit the cash out from the heavens for the 3 count and the victory. That's the corner splash into the frog splash, and there's corner splash into the spine buster into the frog splash for the 3 count and the victory. And afterwards, Owens, as Rollins is chewing out Murphy over what happened, Owens gets in the ring, very gently places his box of popcorn down, hits a stunner on Rollins, gets his popcorn, pours popcorn on Murphy, and then leaves up the ramp eating popcorn. Overall, a decent enough match. A lot of interference on the outside, but again, it did a good job telling the story. Obviously, it's building towards Rollins and Owens at Mania, and maybe a triple threat or something with the Raw Tag Team Championships between Street Profits, Viking Raiders, and AOP. Sorry. Who knows? Maybe you could throw Gallows and Anderson in there too. It might be actually kind of nice to see something like that. Get a lot of these big hoss tag teams, and especially if the Street Profits could say retain over that, it would definitely help make them a premier team in that division. So it's actually a pretty loaded division once they actually start utilizing the tag teams, if they can do it on a regular basis. So I would definitely be up for more of things like that. Okay, so funny story with this next match. We were getting into it. I was just about to begin. They were doing the opening vignette for it, and then suddenly I was at my father's and I was watching on my Kindle Fire Stick. I plugged into his TV, obviously, and suddenly the Fire Stick just completely disconnected from the internet, and I couldn't get it to log back in. I couldn't get to recognize the network. It's like every other thing that was connected to the internet was working fine, so it wasn't the network. It was the Fire Stick. Eventually I had to reset the thing all the way to its factory defaults, and then it took another 20 minutes or so to get everything back installed, and by that point the match in question had already ended. So so I missed the next match, which was the Intercontinental Championship match, the 3-on-1 Braun Strowman versus Sami Zayn, Cesaro, and Shinsuke Nakamura. But I came back, when I got back home, I managed to get back up on the network here and watch it. I had to fast forward through a lot, obviously, just to get to it, but still, not too much around. Kind of some funny things. I'll get this done quickly. The ring announcer, when he was doing his introductions, got interrupted by Strowman's music. I don't think he was expecting. He was like, "Our next match is for the Intercontinental." Backstage, Zayn ran down the fans, and Braun Strowman said, "Strowman hasn't put a finger on me, but tonight I'm actually going to take him on loan. Justice will be served. I need, I'm going to start this off. Shinsuke, Cesaro, I need you to just wait on this, wait up on the ring apron. You might not even get to the match." They immediately got into the match, by the way. Pretty much, Zayn taunted Strowman and then immediately turned around and tagged Shinsuke. Not too much happened here. Basically, anytime Zayn would get in, he'd take a couple cheap shots, he'd immediately tag out. And as this happened, eventually it got to the point where Strowman was about to do his run around the ring, tackle everyone, and Zayn got him a quick cheap shot to the back of the head. So Strowman took off after Zayn, and Zayn started to try to crawl into the ring, and that enabled Cesaro and Nakamura to grab Strowman, toss him into the ring steps. Shinsuke Nakamura hit a Kinshasa. Cesaro then threw Strowman into the ring post. Nakamura hit another Kinshasa, and then Sami Zayn tagged in, and they did the haluva kick double suplex combo. Sami covers Strowman for the 3 count and the win. Sami Zayn at least finally has a single championship on the main roster in WWE. So that probably should have happened at least one other time by this point, but I am glad that he finally got this championship, but at the same time, it's like, it could have maybe been a better way than this. It was really cheap. It just looks really cheap, and you have to wonder again, are we just getting a squash match at Mania or something, or even in a couple weeks? It just, yeah, it was probably the worst match of the night. Even worse than the kickoff show squash match. Okay, and that leads us into our main event, the Women's Elimination Chamber match, with the winner facing Becky Lynch at WrestleMania. Shayna Baszler versus Ruby Riott versus Liv Morgan versus Natalya versus Sarah Logan versus Asuka. Again, because of the network problems I had, I actually missed the intros for this, most of the intros for this, but I managed to see the entire match. So, Ruby Riott and Natalya opened everything up. Riott used her knee to pin Natalya against the chamber wall, and then she tossed her into the pod. Sarah Logan enters and tossed Natalya into the pod as well. It was Liv Morgan's pod in this case. Riott climbed on top of the pod. We had a Tower of Doom off of the top turnbuckle. At this point, Shayna Baszler entered the match. Natalya got tossed into the ring post and then swung headfirst into Baszler's pod, the pod door. And rear naked choke on, she hit the Kirifuna clutch on Sarah Logan, tap out elimination. Ditto to Ruby Riott. Again, she used the door to slam. She slammed the side of the door of the pod. The way the pods open up now, where they pull the doors like that, the doors slide in and out. She took that door and slammed it against Natalya multiple times. Again, locked on the Kirifuna clutch. Another tap out elimination. At this point, Baszler stood there and started jacking with both Morgan and Asuka, who were still in their pods, particularly with Asuka. Liv Morgan was the next one out, immediately got slammed up against the chamber wall by Baszler. Morgan tried to fight her best, but eventually Baszler began hunting Asuka into a top rope Kirifuna clutch on Morgan, who immediately passed out. Asuka then got into the match. She hit a few kicks, but then went for her flying knee strike, and Baszler blocked it. Asuka fought out of it, tried to go for the Asuka lock. Don't know if her wrist injury played into this, but she couldn't quite seem to lock it in. Baszler fought out, hit her underhook or butterfly side slam maneuver. Asuka fought out of her Kirifuna clutch, tried to get in a cradle pin, but Baszler came back, hit a knee strike, and locked on the Kirifuna clutch, and Asuka tapped out. Or no, she didn't tap out, she passed out, sorry. And that was kind of it. And again, this match was not terrible, but I think they were kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't scenario. This one really did fall into the whole problem with the show, which is a lot of it was painfully predictable, and this was possibly the most painfully predictable. It was, everyone knows they were going to do Lynch Baszler at Mania at this point because, I said this before, so you knew she was probably going to win. Like, I think they set up some doubt. They maybe intentionally leaked some rumors about Vince being disappointed with Shayna because of her match against Kairi Sane this past week on Raw, but even then, it's like, you're not going to do Asuka Lynch again. Like, you're not going to, so you're not going to bring Shayna Baszler up to just not use her at Mania. That doesn't make any sense. And I think, again, you were damned if you do. You either do what they did, or you put Shayna out first and have her mow through everyone, or you put Shayna out last and have her mow through everyone. And it's like, well, if you put her out last, it looks like she's just mopping everything up because everyone did all the tough stuff. So, yeah, I think putting her out in the middle made the most sense. Would have liked to have seen some of the others have a bit more of a, for lack of a better term, competition in this. Like, if you were going to do that, maybe put like all three members of the Riott Squad in at the same time instead of having Natalya out first. Then you could have Natalya come in and maybe be a bit more of a formidable challenge to Baszler. Again, Asuka, they say storyline, she has a wrist injury. It seems possible there was a wrist injury, like she wasn't in any of the house shows. She was supposed to be in a match last week. That didn't come to true. So, again, it is possible that she was injured, and maybe that also affected things. But you thought, when she gets in, it's going to be this really big physical match, and it really didn't seem to follow through. So I could definitely see why a lot of people would be disappointed in that. Overall, though, I'd say the show was pretty good. I mean, again, painfully predictable, but most of the matches were entertaining. Like, you know, the only one I'd say outside of the Kickoff Show squash match that was a dud was the IC match. And even then, it's like, you know, it had a couple of entertaining moments to it, so it wasn't terrible, it wasn't awful. So, yeah, again, this was a pretty enjoyable show. I'm going to be giving Elimination Chamber 2020 a B. Like I said, not terrible. I mean, painfully predictable, but still well executed. Nothing too terrible about this. Really enjoyable. So, again, hopefully things will work out. So, okay. Next video is obviously going to be the recap and review of Bloodshot. And then the next wrestling is going to be the NXT TakeOver before Mania, or TakeOver Tampa if you want to call it that. Then WrestleMania. Obviously there'll be like a predictions video as I usually do. That's going to be kind of a busy weekend because I was going to do 2 movies that weekend because it's Easter weekend. I was going to do New Mutants and then Peter Rabbit, but I might hold off on one of them. I think also I have a random trade review supposed to be out that week. There might be a little bit of changing in schedule because of that. I don't know just yet. I'll figure it out. But again, because No Time to Die got pushed back to November because of the coronavirus, and a lot of things are getting delayed because of the coronavirus, I have no idea what's coming out. So hopefully I can get everything out on our regular schedule and everything out in time. See you all next time. Hey guys, remember to check out my Patreon at patreon.com/SleepyTimeForCat Productions, where you can help me expand my wrestling coverage to stuff beyond WWE, NXT, and the occasional AEW free show.